Hi, Denise Matteau here for the Visions of Mercy channel. This video, excuse me, is about time travel and quantum dimensions. I have an article here by Andrew D. Basiago, The 8 Modalities of Time Travel. And I want you to consider the spiritual ramifications of using the number 8. First, number 1. Remote viewing was developed by the United States military in the 1960s, years before it was supposedly developed at Stanford Research Institute in 1972. It uses the human mind to travel to locations distant in space in real time or distant in time-space. Okay, that's one modality. 2. And again, we know that there are traditional shamanic and religious and spiritual traditions about this. Remote viewing, we used to call it clairvoyance. Um, I'm not justifying different ways of thinking. I'm just pointing out reality is there, and we look at it from whatever direction we're coming from. This guy is coming from the secular direction. So that's remote viewing. Number 2, spinning to induce out-of-body experience so as to travel on the astral plane is an ancient occult practice. It uses dissociation of the mind to access, while awake, the astral realm that we access while we are lucid dreaming. And that, again, we know about spinning in the Sufi tradition, among others. Okay, the Montauk chair. I'm not sure about this. I've heard about it. It's a technical device that was built, actually. Montauk Point is in Long Island. The Montauk chair was reverse engineered from the pilot's seat aboard a crashed ET craft, by which the ET pilot piloted the craft psychically to avoid collisions in space in light of the speed of the craft and the vast interstellar distances traversed. Now, before you dismiss this, number 1, I do believe there's physical proof that the military actually did build something. And number 2, compare what he's describing to what we know is going on in laboratories developing prosthetic devices for paralytics. You can be a quadriplegic now, and you can have a computer screen that you can think into. And we also know about the rather creepy ambitions of Facebook to establish pre-typing, wordless typing, that it's going to know what we're thinking. And you better believe a lot of people are going to quit Facebook as soon as that starts to come out. Anyway, the Montauk chair uses magnetic transduction to boost human consciousness forward in time so that the individual in the chair pre-experiences a moment in his subjective future. So you can't use the Montauk chair to talk about anybody else. Then there's somebody there are other citations. This, by the way, is in the site humansarefree.com. Links in the description. The teleporter, which opens up a vortal tunnel in the fabric of time-space through which the teleportee travels from point A to point B, was invented by Nikola Tesla. It uses a field of radiant energy to open up the vortal tunnel in time-space. That is similar to Star Trek's Beam Me Up, Scotty. That was illustrated in Star Trek. Number 5. The chronovisor was accidentally discovered by Vatican musicologists, Father Pellegrino Ernetti and Father Agostino Gemelli, when they were studying the harmonic patterns in Gregorian chant at the Catholic University of Milan in the 1940s. Ernetti and Gemelli found that the microphone they were developing could pick up the sounds of past events. It uses holograms that are so dense that they have the effect of lensing non-local events into the laboratory, which the time traveler can visit and explore while standing in the hologram. I think the best way to try to understand that is to think about how you can't see what's in the water, but if you put on a mask that lenses it, you could put your face and you can see clearly what's under there. I mean, that's probably not perfect, but it's the idea I can see. And the advanced chronovisor was developed from a TV-like screen into a standing cubicle hologram of moving multicolored light by United States defense contractors under DARPA after the Vatican gave the chronovisor technology to the United States government. Okay, number 6, the Stargate is a Tesla teleporter that so concentrates the radiant energy it derives from quantum hologram that it can send the teleportee vast distances in time-space. This seems to be what the Hadron Collider at CERN is all about. So, I'm not talking about things that people sit around in dark seance living rooms and imagine. There's millions of dollars being sunk into this technology. It's real. The plasma confinement chamber, and this is number 7. The plasma confinement chamber was invented by Dr. Sterling Colgate, president of the New Mexico Institute of Science and Technology, and a physicist at the Los Alamos National Laboratories. It uses radioactive plasma to propagate a wormhole which the time traveler travels in order to be embedded temporarily in a past event. When this local field effect created around the chrononaut wears off, he experiences in transitioning spontaneously back to his point of embarkation in the chamber. Okay. And number 8, the jump room or aeronautical repositioning chamber was developed in a joint venture between Parsons and Lockheed, possibly after being reverse engineered from an extraterrestrial device or as a result of ET human liaison, in which the device was given to the United States government by one of the gray ET species. All right. What's interesting about this, and I said I was going to talk a little bit about something about the crucifix. I mean, that article can give you a year's worth of studying religious tradition related to the nature of time and space and our ability to travel in it, the spiritual realm. There's an element in there. The author, Andrew Basiago, is someone who participated in Project Pegasus involving all these things. And he claims to actually have transported back in time to the Gettysburg, the moment of the Gettysburg Address. And there appears to be photographic evidence to that effect. This is, you can choose to believe it or not believe it, but this is what I find interesting. Everybody knows that of all the different pieces of political literature we could foist upon our children, memorizing the Gettysburg Address is an American tradition. Almost all American children who have any level of education have at some point been asked to memorize and recite the Gettysburg Address. This means that all of these minds at a young age, and usually it's at about the same age that Andrew Basiago claims he was when he, as a child participant in Project Pegasus, was sent back to that moment in time. And he says, I'm saying that it's interesting that our culture has chosen that particular verbal meme to insert in everybody's brain. It was not done deliberately. I don't believe one single teacher all through the 60s and 70s that was being taught. I don't believe one single teacher had any intention of creating a receiving point for that moment to today. But it happened. And it's interesting that it is at the age of the generation that experienced that education, memorizing the Gettysburg Address, that is the same generation that Basiago belongs to, because he's about my age. And I know younger children aren't being required to memorize the Gettysburg Address. They're being taught to hate Lincoln and hate everything. It's sad what's going on. But spiritually, psychologically, culturally, this is fascinating. Okay, the crucifix. In all Christian tradition, Catholic, or even those Christians who choose the plain cross in place of the crucifix, a great deal of the worship collective activity, meditation, prayer, singing, focuses on that moment of crucifixion. And Jesus stated that this was that was his passage through the wormhole we all face when we die. He successfully, as God, went both ways through that passage. The crucifixion was the event in which that is anchored. And so for 2,000 years, all of these brains, minds, human souls have gathered to recite and to do the Stations of the Cross, to meditate on the events of the crucifixion. Again, a very important moment in the human species' ability to travel in the spiritual realm is simultaneously anchored in the individual who experienced it, in this case, Jesus, the Son of Mary, and the minds of all the people who came after. Now, Jesus, the Son of Mary, it's for the whole Christian world. Andrew Basiago, it was only for this limited political group of Americans. But the principle that I'm pointing at is that somehow our collective awareness touched us this. And I'm coming up to my 15 minutes of fame here, so I'm going to have to stop. But this is something worth thinking about. And I'm going to throw a link to the article in the description, and thank you, over and out.